The Meta Quest 3S is an attempt to bring the wonder of standalone mixed reality and VR gaming to everyone. It's a more affordable version of the Meta Quest 3, not an upgrade, but rather a downgrade. Actually, it swaps out some of the components for cheaper ones, while keeping those that are most important to the gameplay experience and usability. Starting at $300 for the base 128GB model compared to the $500 of the Big Brother Quest 3 512GB model, the question is, are the compromises one step too far, or have they managed to keep the magic alive? I'm James Bruce, you're watching WindowsReport.com reviews, and before we jump right in, I think it's important to say that unlike a lot of reviewers, I've been using VR headsets for well over a decade now, ever since the very first Oculus Rift developer kit, which I still have. There's only a few hundred of these in the world, so this is absolutely not a new category from me. I've owned and tested nearly all of the major headsets since then. The Meta Quest 3 is currently my go-to daily VR device of choice, but I also have a PSVR 2, Pimax Crystal for PC, along with some absolutely insane hardware like a motion rig for racing and a VR treadmill. So look, this is just to say, you can trust me on this, I know what I'm talking about. From a design perspective, little has changed from the Quest 3 other than the front sensors. So gone are the complex depth sensing cameras, and instead we get a series of color cameras and an infrared emitter, with the depth perception now occurring entirely in software. And it's credit to Meta that they've optimized the core features enough to have the spare CPU to calculate that in software, because as far as I can tell, it works just as well. The pass-through quality is superb. And as with all camera-based systems, it produces the best mixed reality image in good light. The Quest 3S also adds a handy button by the volume for quickly switching to mixed reality and full-on VR. The controllers and the Headstrap, these are basically all the same as the Quest 3, and I've criticised this flimsy strap before and the lack of decent audio. I even ended up 3D printing some adapters to use a Vive Deluxe audio strap on my Quest 2, but never got around to doing the same on the Quest 3. To be honest, it's passable audio, you probably won't care, and it's comfortable for most people. And if you do find it being a problem, there's plenty of third-party solutions available for, say, a ratcheting strap, a cooling system, depending on how you're going to use the headset. But my one real complaint here would be that they removed the 3.5mm audio out jack, because it means I can't connect any external headphones, so you will need to use Bluetooth if you want to replace the sort of inbuilt tinny audio here. The biggest downgrade from the Quest 3 is in the visuals. For a start, the resolution goes from 2064 by 2208 pixels per eye to 1832 by 1920, so about 10% less resolution. On top of that, the lenses have changed from a flat pancake style on the Quest 3 to Fresnel. Now, Fresnel lenses, which you can usually identify by sort of distinctive concentric rings or ridges, are known for being lower quality. They add a little blurriness on the edges. They're prone to artifacts like God rays, where a bright spot on the image causes a sort of lens flare. But actually, as someone who has owned and tested so many headsets with both Fresnel and pancake lenses, it's really not a big deal. Objectively speaking, if I switch back and forth between this headset and the Quest 3, yes, I would notice the difference. You would too. It's obvious. You don't need to have 10 years of experience with VR to be able to tell. And even without switching back and forth, the God rays and the smearing of bright spots as I moved my head around on the Quest 3S was obvious. If your main use case is going to be watching movies and you have to have the best quality available, then yes, you'll probably want to spend a little bit more for the original Quest 3. But for VR and mixed reality gaming, it truly doesn't matter, and I'll tell you why later. As for other specs, the internals are the same as the Quest 3, the same CPU, the same GPU, and the memory. The storage differs, but only in the sense that they've now discontinued the 128GB version of the Quest 3, which is actually what I have. If you're quick, you might still be able to find it online for $430, but 128GB is quite a lot when it comes to VR anyway. A lot of the games you play won't be graphical masterpieces, so unless you're traveling and need to store a lot of movies on the go, then having a networked storage system for media is the best solution at home. And it means you can keep one or two big name games installed, plus a lot of less graphically intense ones. Arkham Shadow, for instance, is around 20 gigabytes. As I said though, my original Quest 3 is only 128 gigabytes, and I've got along just fine with that. If you're using this to stream your games from a PC, then obviously that takes up almost no size at all. For those of you who are new to the Quest and perhaps VR headsets in general, I think the single biggest innovation that the Quest 3 brought to the world was truly mixed reality gaming, thanks to the incredible quality color pass-through of your real environment. And that's no different on the Quest 3S. The pass-through quality is outstanding. You can move around normally, you can even view your phone screen. So on that front, there's no difference. The pass-through, the mixed reality gaming is all the same. In regular use, you have to set your boundaries to your play space for safety to ensure you don't hit anything. But if you have access to some larger play areas, you can do some truly impressive stuff. And lately I've been obsessed with a game called Laser Limbo, which augments your reality with a laser tag type game, either co-op against waves of enemy drones or just straight up shooting your opponent. The only boundaries in this game are your actual room, which you can carefully map out to create the walls, and then you can add real life obstacles as well as virtual obstacles and create a sort of unique battleground. It's just unreal. It's a system seller in my opinion, and it's free at the moment. And having spent so many hours with this on the Quest 3 and Quest 3S, I can confidently say that the experience in both is identical. Now, purchases of the Quest 3S also include a copy of Batman Arkham Shadow, so I haven't had that long with the game yet, but already I'm having a blast with it. It is a great showcase for the headset. It's not a system seller, I don't think, but you know what, as a free bundled in game, it's pretty good, and I'm surprised how much of a workout it is actually. The combat's pretty intense. The rest of the game is not particularly taxing. Throw your batarang, glide around a bit, it's good stuff. Now, the Quest 3S isn't just a brilliant standalone VR and mixed reality gaming system though, it's also a brilliant PC VR gaming system, opening up the world of Oculus Desktop and Steam VR simply and wirelessly. You can plug it in through USB-C, but if you have a decent Wi-Fi 6 router, there's really no reason to do that. You'll get little latency doing it wirelessly. There's a couple of ways you can actually do this. The first is with Oculus Link, which is obviously built in and free. There's also Steam Link, which is also free. And finally, there's a virtual desktop, which is a paid application. Now, my preference is for the latter. It just gives more options. It's a bit better for flat pancake gaming as well. If you wanted to, say, play Civ 6 on an IMAX-sized screen, you can absolutely do that. It also tends to have the best performance. But Steam Link is also a great free option with pretty much zero config needed. So if the Quest library isn't big enough for you, or you wanted some more high fidelity gaming and you have a decent gaming PC, then there's nothing better really than wireless virtual reality. So should you buy the Quest 3S? If this is going to be your first headset and you've been put off by the price of the Quest 3, $500 might be a bit much, then the Quest 3S is an obvious and brilliant entry point. For a long-term Quest 3 user, the compromises are obvious in direct comparisons, but honestly, it doesn't matter. And here's why. The original Oculus Development Kit 1 is pretty horrific compared to either of these 3 or 3S. Although it did have technically a wider field of view than most headsets made since, it didn't have positional tracking. It was purely rotational, so it doesn't know when you move forwards or back, just up, down, left or right. And by today's standards, that is quite sickness-inducing. Many a folk ended up collapsed on my sofa after using this for just a few minutes. That sounds really bad. And yet, even today, if I go back to the Tuscany Villa environment, which was one of the two demos that could run on this device, it still brings a tear to my eye. Because ultimately, the display type doesn't matter. It's not really about the technology. It's the emotional connection, the immersion. It's being so utterly and completely transported to a different world. That's what makes the Quest 3S a brilliant headset, because if Meta can share that experience with more people at a more affordable price point, that's an amazing thing. If you don't yet have a VR headset, this is the best entry point yet. It's affordable, it's incredible, it has more features than an Apple Vision Pro. It works standalone, it can hook up to your gaming PC for a huge selection of VR games wirelessly. It has incredible mixed reality experiences. You can throw down the controllers and use your hands instead. It's $300. I mean, come on, there's a whole virtual world out there waiting to be discovered. If you've even been vaguely interested in the VR concept but haven't bought one yet, I truly don't know what else you're waiting for at this point. I'm James Bruce. You've been watching WindowsReport.com reviews. Until next time, maybe we'll meet in the metaverse. The cool one though, not Meta Horizon. That's not cool. Bad meta.